Hey guys, Levelcap here, and today I want to talk about the good, the bad, and a little in between with the Battlefield 2042 beta. Before we get too deep into the feedback, I want to first say that this beta build, as confirmed by EA, is several months old and that many of the buggy issues in this are apparently fixed. So I won't be talking too much about the weird bugs or missing features, but I will be addressing some things like the performance. Now, why don't we start off with the good? The overall 2042 beta experience is over-the-top, crazy cinematic. There's more players, more vehicles, and much larger areas to play in, leading to crazy visuals in action. Just about anywhere you look, something is driving, flying, and/or shooting. It really makes you feel the scale in a much different sense than any previous Battlefield game. It sort of reminds me of that cheesy scene in Avengers Age of Ultron where all the heroes slow down in a freeze frame as their action sequences overlap into the same scene. Battlefield 2042 has moments like this all the time. When you see tanks, planes, robots, dogs, and like 10 infantry all on your screen at the same time, it's pretty darn epic. And this in itself is a remarkable accomplishment and is probably much closer to what devs and players think of when they imagine the ideal Battlefield experience. A really nice effect of the massive player count is that you rarely capture an objective without a firefight. Ghost capping, a term used in previous Battlefield games, meant capturing an objective that nobody was guarding. Doing so still rewarded you points and helped out your team, but it was also completely lacking a sense of reward or realism for that matter. Hopefully this new increased player count means that ghost capping will be more or less gone. Now this new map Orbital, and I would imagine this goes for many of the new maps that we're getting, are just absolutely loaded with tons of cool stuff, most of which I'm sure I haven't even discovered yet because the size of the map is so stinking big. We kind of have to look at Battlefield games differently now, where the map number means something different compared to previous maps because these maps are just so massive. Now the cool things littered throughout the map are stuff like zip lines that take you up to sniper spots, there's giant buildings that you can parachute from, there's exploding fuel tanks, underground tunnels, plenty of destructible buildings, there's jungles, a rocket ship. I mean, it's kind of like a Battlefield amusement park, and it leads to all kinds of awesome emergent moments that make the game feel special. Visually, the engine is beyond that of any of the previous games while still pushing the scale in player count. I don't know what kind of voodoo magic programming DICE is doing over there, but somehow they're pushing the tech in every direction simultaneously, and it's still playable. Now the new gadgets are fun ways of expanding what you can do in a Battlefield game. Grappling up onto vantage points quickly gives assault players an edge in picking their engagement spots or flanking the enemy. The Engineer Sentry Turret is a cool tool that spots, distracts, and even damages the enemies, and while the Recon and Support both kind of get repeats from previous games, we do know that more unique gadgets are coming at launch. Now the new Plus system actually works and is a nice way to mod and test your guns in real time. If a gun's kicking a little bit much, well, you can put a muzzle brake on there to reduce its recoil. Did you maybe pick a red dot sight in a map with too many long-range engagements? Well, swap out your optic. It's not a big deal. However, there is another element of the system that I'm not super excited about, but we can get into that later. Now, generally speaking, the gunplay feels good. It's not some weird new take on how to make guns function in Battlefield. So if you're hoping that the game more or less feels like a good old Battlefield game, it does. Also, the aerial combat is extremely cool. It might not sound like a big deal to all the non-pilots out there, but because maps are so large, aerial transports become a bigger element of the game. So even the average player is probably going to have a lot more opportunities to be a gunner in an aircraft. The helicopters are really fun as heck, the transports are super tanky and provide fun shooting opportunities for non-pilots, and the jets just look cool doing all their jet stuff. Also, because there's 128 players in the server, the odds that one pilot is going to dominate everyone is substantially less, leading to less frustration over a single enemy pilot. Now, frankly, there's tons of other amazing good things about Battlefield. These were just some of the bigger ones I wanted to mention, and although I'm going to transition into talking about the problems with the beta, keep in mind that my overall experience with it so far has been extremely positive. Battlefield 2042 is a Battlefield game. It feels like Battlefield, it looks like Battlefield, well, on roids, and most importantly, it's really fun. Ultimately, if anything's lacking, well, it can always be fixed, but as long as the foundation is good and the gameplay is fun, we have a platform that should keep players engaged for years. So again, I'm feeling very good about the state of this Battlefield game, and I'm excited for its future. Now, to move on to some of the less good stuff, and then on to some of the frankly bad stuff. In the less good category, we have the promotional gimmick that is tornadoes. And don't get me wrong, tornadoes are freaking cool. They look awesome and the physics around them are pretty dope as well. However, because the tornadoes do look so cool and provide all these awesome crazy destruction opportunities, well, when they do spawn, everyone just runs into them with wild abandon. Game mode be damned. People give 0 Fs about Conquest once a tornado arrives. And while this might be sort of a look at the new thing syndrome, I'm not sure people are going to get bored of them if they only spawn in like 1 in 20 matches. The reduced spawn rate definitely feels like DICE trying to lessen the impact of a good marketing but bad gameplay idea. It's just weird to me that every once in a while you're going to be playing a game of Battlefield where everyone just gives up and jumps into a tornado mid-match. Again, maybe this won't be as big of an issue after a while. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, in my other kind of meh category when it comes to gameplay design, I'm not sure if cluster capping has any real effect on how people play Conquest. The new cluster capping mechanic basically groups objectives together into, say, D1 and D2, where one team will need to own both objectives in order to get the sector captured. And while you might think this would incentivize people to focus on capturing both objectives before moving on, from what I've seen so far, Conquest still just seems to be a mob of headless chickens running to the next closest capture point, regardless of its strategic significance. DICE is trying to make Conquest more of a thinking man's game, but when 90% of the team isn't thinking, well, good luck giving them strategic choices. Conquest may always just be that popular mode in Battlefield that's more or less a sandbox with a handful of players that actually take it seriously. I think DICE could do some things better to incentivize capture goals, but at the same time it might also erode the casual fun that is Conquest. Now, moving on to the bad side of the beta, there's a new feature that I find to be extremely annoying and potentially extremely bad. That's the ammo or magazine options in the Plus system. Now, for anyone that doesn't yet understand the ammo system in 2042, I'm gonna summarize it here. Like any other Battlefield game, you'll spawn in with your ammo preloaded in your gun in your little ammo counter in the lower right corner. However, it's going to be less ammo than you probably want. And when you run out of ammo, well, your gun's not going to reload. However, there's also alternative ammo magazines that you are carrying for your primary weapon that you can swap to using the Plus system. And that's where you hold T and move your mouse in the direction that you want. And from here, you can select the alternative ammo options depending on your weapon. The starting M4A5, for example, has standard issue, close combat, and high-powered ammo. These ammo types change the rate of fire, damage per shot, magazine count, and handling of your weapon to better suit specific engagements. And while I'm generally all for more customization options for your kit, I think this is the wrong way to go about it. The system is currently forcing everyone to split their total ammo into multiple categories, giving you less of your preferred ammo. Plus, those extra magazines will not auto-swap to the other ammo once one runs out, forcing you into the T menu mid-firefight to pick a new ammo before you can reload your primary. This can be super annoying if you go into a firefight with one magazine left and then are forced to open the T menu and select a new ammo just to get another magazine into your gun. This is definitely going to get you killed a bunch. Now, the thinking behind the system is to reward forethought. So in theory, players will preload ammo for the combat ranges that they think they're about to get into. The problem is that we already have optic swapping, grip swapping, barrel swapping, and now magazine swapping. Does DICE expect players to swap out 2 to 4 items every time they go from clearing a room to shooting out the window of that room? When I use high-powered ammo, it's going to significantly increase the recoil of my gun. Should I then attach a compensator to match up with that ammo type mid-combat? You may have to start memorizing different weapon loadouts for each ammo type and quickly Fortnite build your gun into something else mid-firefight. And before I realized how this ammo system worked, I thought the Plus system was just more or less going to be a way to occasionally swap out an optic or maybe test a different weapon setup without having to despawn. but I think DICE actually wants me to be swapping all this stuff all the time to get like a 5 to 10% damage advantage, provided that I properly anticipate the distance of my next target. To me, this is such a ridiculous concept, especially for a game as unpredictable and fast-paced as Battlefield. Now, normally I would be more or less fine just ignoring DICE's lesser attempts at innovation as long as they don't get in my way. But this time, DICE has now split my ammo into 3 equal-ish groups that I now have to swap between if I actually want to use it all. And each group is a fraction of the ammo pool size that I would expect from, say, Battlefield 4. And each different magazine has different ammo counts, recoil, damage. It's going to be extremely annoying going through 2 to 3 different recoil and damage profiles just to utilize your ammo in a single life. I would suggest that DICE mods this system, like let me choose an option to dump all of my ammo into one type, or since the entire system is pretty unrealistic anyway, maybe just recalculate my total ammo for when I swap between types. So if I have, say, 155 rounds of 5.56 and I swap over to 9mm or whatever, it's going to give me like maybe 200 rounds of that. This way you still get the ability to mod your gun and change up your combat style when you're experimenting, but once you're happy with the way it performs, just let me play a fully ammoed out weapon the way I like. You can almost see how the developers didn't realize that this was going to be an issue until they got to this phase of the Plus system, and then were like, what if we just gave them a third of their total ammo but split it into 3 categories? Sounds good? Okay, yeah, let's just push that. And this leads me to my next criticism. Where do I get ammo? Sure, you can opt to swap out your main gadget for an ammo crate, but say I'm running a rocket launcher to deal with tanks. Now where do I get my ammo from? Well, you can pick up a few bullets off of dead enemies. I occasionally saw ammo crates drop down by other players, but honestly it only happened a handful of times per match. Classes and class symbols no longer represent ammo distribution, so I don't even know who to ask for ammo, and as far as I can tell, there's no ammo depots at capture points or anywhere on the map. My hope is that DICE either did not yet implement ammo depots, or that they're just coming in the final release, or that miraculously the meta will shift and tons of people will start running with ammo crates instead of, cooler things like rockets and armor plates. I'm not really sure, but I got a feeling I'm going to be running with an ammo box a lot of the time. Now, how about that fan favorite specialist system? How does that actually work in practice? Well, not particularly well. Classes without question would have been a better choice, and here's why. The first problem is that the specialists look the same from US to Russia. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but Russian Irish is going to be running around saying Das Vidanya. That sounds like good game design, right? And if you're too close to an enemy or the angle is kind of weird, it's super easy to misread an enemy as a friendly, since we're basically fighting in the Clone Wars and everyone looks the same. This might change up a bit once cosmetics are in the game, but at the moment, it's pretty weird. It also leads into the specialist versus loadout problem. A specialist is now really only a special gadget and the perk that comes with it. Their loadout is completely unrestricted otherwise, so weapons, ammo crates, sensor grenades, repair torch, etc. are all completely class and specialist independent. And there are so many weird and annoying things that happen because of this. As mentioned before, well, there's no ammo class anymore, so I have no idea who has ammo. But also, like now you can have a medic class with the Surette pistol that can also carry an ammo crate. Plus she can carry a sniper rifle too, so get ready to fight some self-healing snipers with never-ending ammo supply. Can't wait for that meta to get popular. I honestly can't figure out if DICE is doing the open weapon system because they thought it would be good game design, or because they were honestly just too lazy to try and balance classes into specific weapon categories. Well, don't worry now guys, because this is great news. You can now use your favorite annoying meta weapon for every class. Why get good with LMGs, shotguns, or DMRs when you can just assault rifle meta your way through each class? It's really unfortunate that this is the route that DICE decided to go. This, along with abolishing the class system, really wipes away some of the things that made this franchise a bit more unique. Alright, let's talk about some stuff that has a better chance of actually getting fixed. The UI in the beta is without question the least finished part of the game, but even the parts that are functional still aren't great. Bugs aside, I really don't like how score points are pushed over onto the right side of the screen. It makes it really hard to figure out what's actually happening in combat, like if a guy bails out a vehicle right before you blow it up, no kill registers on screen, and the points are off to the right and barely visible, so it looks like someone stole your kill or the guy DC'd. It's confusing until you glance over at the right side of your screen to see what actually happened. The UI overlay is also not great. Objectives are washed out in certain lighting conditions, and also they just don't appear a lot of the time. It seems like clustered objectives sometimes don't show the sub-objectives on your player screen, making it annoying to figure out what's happening on an objective, even when you're looking right at it. When your team gains or loses a sector majority, a giant red or blue bar appears at the top of your screen. It is freaking ugly, and also, DICE, most people aren't going to PTFO no matter how many exclamation points you put on the screen, so just give it a rest. At the end of each round, or in round for that matter, there isn't a functional scoreboard. I'm hoping that this is a missing feature and not DICE trying to pull some everyone's a winner and your scores don't matter type of BS. I was really looking forward to seeing where I ranked in 128 player matches. Instead, it kind of shows your place in certain categories, but doesn't show you stuff like KDR or who the top players were at the end of the match. Please don't let this be the final design, DICE. We like competition, and not everyone is a winner. It's okay to be good, it's okay to be bad. The scoreboard kind of showed you where you were or how you played, or maybe how other players are doing compared to you and how they got there. It's information. I like it. Don't take away my info. Now, also, it doesn't appear anyway that there's separate controls for the helicopter and jet. Now, DICE, if you're unaware, these are two different vehicles with entirely different ways of flying. I didn't even fly jets at all in the beta because I couldn't properly bind my controls without ruining my helicopter settings. I sincerely hope this is just missing UI design or something. Oh, and speaking of vehicles, they are crazy OP. I mean, it's possible that the meta hasn't established itself enough yet, but if I ever feel like killing 20 infantry real quick, I'll just spawn into a helicopter. It is easy mode for pilots right now. And hitting choppers with rockets from the ground is considerably harder since they're faster and they don't need to get as close to engage you. And the lock-on missile systems miss their targets a lot for some reason. It's possible that the current way that AA missiles function is bugged, so maybe if that gets fixed for the final game, the air meta will calm down a bit. Now, on the performance side of things, despite the general frame rate being acceptable, not great, but functional, the engine does seem to chunk quite a bit at times and still leaves my GPU well underutilized. I certainly hope this is a problem with the beta only. I would hate for this game to launch with all the same performance hiccup BS that we had to live through with Battlefield 5. I'd certainly be more understanding considering that this is a beta, but I've still got framerate PTSD from Battlefield 5, so I'm particularly concerned that issues like these will take a long time to iron out. Now, in general, the gunplay feels good, except for sniping. It's kind of hard to pinpoint why exactly sniping feels so off. Sometimes shots miss that seem like they should be hitting. Player animations are hard to track, especially at range when animation quality is reduced and or netcode seems a little bit off. It just feels clunky and generally unrewarding. And sadly, I have a feeling that it's a more complex issue than just tuning some weapon balance stuff. I think there's a lot of different factors affecting it. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, both in the sense that it's the last on my list, but also because it's the last thing I thought I would have to hand slap DICE for again, is player visibility. We're now firmly in the era of no more quick spotting in Battlefield. And while my keyboard Q button thanks DICE, my eyes do not. When a storm system rolls in, as they often do in this 2042 dystopian future, the dark and cluttered visuals become extremely unpleasant for firefights. Iron sights and red dots get obstructed by your own weapon muzzle flash, and players blend into these shadows and foliage quite easily. Trying to pilot and aim with water on your windscreen is also nearly impossible from the first-person perspective. Now, using a storm to reduce visibility for rare occasions or very specifically to reduce engagement ranges for a limited time would be one thing. But because the storms seem pretty darn frequent and are allegedly a bigger part of the entire game, we could be in for another annoying gameplay mechanic that's present in a significant amount of the gameplay. Imagine playing, say, Battlefield 4, where a sandstorm rolled in every other match. It'd probably get pretty annoying pretty fast. And while it's not that bad, the effects change significantly depending on the environment. If you're trying to have a jungle firefight in the middle of the storm, good luck trying to spot an enemy player sitting by some trees or bushes. They are going to blend right in. Despite all of these beta issues, I want to again reiterate that I am actually having a ton of fun playing the beta, and I think the overall foundation is good. It's solid. There are a few design choices that take away from the game, some of which may be impossible to fix at this point, but there's also plenty of weird little things that can be easily improved. And who knows, if the beta build really is as old as EA says it is, then it's entirely possible that so much of what I'm talking about right now has already been fixed. And now that we're a day into the beta, what do you guys think? Are you loving it, hating it, indifferent? Let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.